and you watch Donald Trump. Do you ever laugh? Do you ever actually laugh?
Most of the time.
Did you ever actually watch that Access Hollywood Billy Bush tape? Did you ever sit?
I did.
You did?
I saw it.
And at that moment, did you know that it was going to be as notable as it turned out to be?
Well, I didn't you?
There are some stories in American public life that you cannot fully see until you step far enough back to take in the whole picture. Stories that stretch across more than a decade, cross different stages, move from one comedian to another, from one president to another, and reveal a pattern so clean and so consistent that once you notice it, you cannot unnotice it. You cannot unsee it. It just sits there in your mind forever. This is one of those stories, because what Barack Obama did to Donald Trump on a spring night in April of 2011 and what Jimmy Kimmel did on a Sunday night in March of 2024 is the exact same move, the same weapon, the same calm, unhurried, almost gentle comedic strike delivered 13 years apart on completely different stages, in completely different rooms, in front of completely different audiences. And both times, the most powerful man in that room could do absolutely nothing. He could not shout his way out of it. He could not threaten his way out of it. He could not argue his way out of it. He could only sit there and take it. Let me set this scene for you properly, because a story like this deserves to be told the right way. Stay with me through every paragraph, because this gets more extraordinary the deeper we go. And the one small detail from 2011 that Obama himself admitted later actually reshaped American politics is going to stop you cold when you hear it. The story begins in Washington, D.C. It begins inside the Hilton Ballroom. It is the White House Correspondents' Dinner of 2011. The room is glittering, chandeliers catching the light, journalists in tuxedos and black dresses crowded around round tables, waiters moving silently with water pitchers, cameras lined along the back walls. The kind of evening that looks glamorous but feels tense, because everyone in that room knows these nights sometimes produce moments that last forever. And seated at one of those front tables, close enough to the stage that every single television camera in the country could find him in half a second, was Donald Trump. He had been everywhere in the news for months. He had been showing up on morning shows, on cable panels, on talk radio, everywhere a microphone could reach him, demanding over and over again to see the birth certificate of the first black president of the United States, questioning whether Barack Obama had really been born in America, fueling the entire birther movement with his name, his wealth, and his voice. He had made himself the loudest drumbeat of that story for the whole country. And on that Saturday night, inside that glittering ballroom, Barack Obama walked quietly to the microphone with a small, patient smile on his face. He did not look angry. He did not look insulted. He looked like a man who had been waiting. And what he did next became a template that political history will be studying for the next 100 years. He did not shout. He did not attack. He did not raise his voice even a single note. He simply began to speak. "Donald Trump is here tonight," he said, the words slow, the smile barely moving. Now, I know that he has taken some flack lately, but no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this whole birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that is because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing? What really happened in Roswell? And where are Biggie and Tupac? The ballroom exploded, not with polite chuckles, not with forced laughter, with the kind of full-body laughter that shakes a whole room at once. Journalists doubling over, senators wiping their eyes, cameras spinning toward the one table everyone wanted to see, and there, caught in the middle of the whole storm, sat Donald Trump, frozen, stone face, lips tight, jaw locked, not a smile, not a wave, not a small nod of acknowledgement. He sat perfectly still, like a statue placed inside a room that was roaring around him. And the entire country, watching live on television, understood in real time that something had happened to him that he could not push back against. He had no move. He had no comeback. He had no microphone. And Obama was not finished. He moved on, still calm, still smiling, still quiet, and turned his attention to Trump's credentials. He mentioned the show Celebrity Apprentice with a straight face, as if he were reviewing a resume. He mentioned that Trump had recently handled a difficult leadership challenge by firing the actor Gary Busey. "These," Obama said, with a slow, dry tone that cracked the room open all over again, "are the decisions that keep me up at night." The ballroom dissolved for a second time, wave after wave of laughter. And through all of it, Trump's face did not move. His eyes did not blink. His mouth stayed a straight, tight line. The cameras held on him for what felt like eternity, and political historians for years afterward, including people who had worked in that very room that night, would later point to those few minutes as a genuine turning point, something that lit a fire inside the man at that table, something that possibly reshaped the entire next 15 years of American politics. But that was only the opening chapter, because 13 years later, on a Sunday night in March of 2024, on one of the biggest entertainment stages in the entire world, Jimmy Kimmel stood on the floor of the Dolby Theater hosting the Academy Awards. Hollywood's biggest night. Gowns, tuxedos, gold statues. Every camera in the industry pointed at one stage. And somewhere in Florida, far from that theater, a man who had spent years publicly claiming that he did not watch Jimmy Kimmel was watching Jimmy Kimmel very closely. Closely enough to reach for his phone in the middle of the broadcast and fire off a long, furious, late-night post, calling Kimmel the worst host in the history of the Oscars, demanding that ABC replace him, launching insults in real time while the show was still airing. Here is where this story shifts completely. Backstage, in the middle of the biggest show of Kimmel's career, somebody saw the post. A producer, a writer, a staffer, somebody. And a decision had to be made fast. Ignore it and stay focused on the show. Or show it to the host, right there, in the middle of the broadcast, and let him decide what to do. They chose to show him. When the commercial break ended, Kimmel walked calmly back to his mark on the stage. He did not look rattled. He did not look angry. He did not look like a man about to lose his temper. He pulled out his phone, raised it in his hand so the cameras could catch it, and in that same unhurried tone Obama had used 13 years earlier, he read the attack out loud, word for word. Every sentence of it, delivered live to hundreds of millions of viewers around the world. By the host, it had been written to destroy. And then he paused, a small, clean pause, the kind of pause Obama had used in that ballroom, the kind of pause that is actually the joke. And he looked up at the camera and delivered 9 simple words that would echo everywhere before the night was over. "Isn't it past your jail time?" The theater erupted. Hollywood's biggest names jumped to their feet, laughing. The clip cut loose instantly, flying through the internet before the next commercial break had ended. By morning, it had crossed tens of millions of views. By the following afternoon, it was in every newsroom in the country. And once again, only one of two things could be true. They could not both be true. Either a former president was not watching a show he publicly claimed to ignore, or he was watching closely enough to post about it in real time while it aired. The timestamps told the truth on their own. The audience watching at home had done the math in their heads within seconds. And just like that night in Washington, 13 years earlier, there was nothing the man in the target seat could do about it. He could keep posting, he could keep attacking, he could keep typing, but every single response only made the joke land harder. Every reply proved how deeply it had cut. The more he typed, the bigger the laugh grew. Stay with me, because what happened next is the part that turns this from a funny story into something serious. Because in September of 2025, after months of escalating pressure on late-night hosts across the industry, after a controversial monologue that had set off a political firestorm, ABC suddenly pulled Jimmy Kimmel off the air indefinitely. No host, no show, no warning to the audience, just a hole in the schedule where a voice used to be. The move sent a chill through every comedy writer's room in America, and Kimmel himself, wrapping up a taping, had no idea it was coming. A producer walked up to him backstage with a flat face and quietly showed him a message on a phone. The show was gone. Indefinitely. No explanation given. No timeline provided. Just silence. Let that sit for a moment. A late-night host, in the middle of doing his job, learning from a stranger's phone that his platform had just been taken away from him. A platform he had built for more than 20 years. Because what Kimmel did when the show finally returned to the air is the reason this entire story matters. He did not come back angry. He did not storm out onto the stage with a clenched fist and a long speech about freedom of expression. He did not deliver a furious monologue about threats to democracy. He did not cry. He did not shout. He did not plead. He walked out exactly the way Obama had walked to that microphone 13 years earlier, calm, smiling, unhurried, with a patient, quiet look in his eyes, as if he had been waiting for this moment to find its own shape. He read the attacks out loud. He let the jokes land one by one, slow and clean. He poked gentle holes where gentle holes needed to be poked. He made the audience laugh in the same low, grateful way the ballroom had laughed in 2011. And the viewers at home, watching a comedian who had just been punished, silenced, and pulled off the air, refused to be intimidated, responded in a way they had never responded to him before. There was something in that studio that felt like a dam breaking, a quiet, roaring, grateful dam. Because the audience understood exactly what they were watching. They were watching a man choose calm in the face of pressure. They were watching the same weapon, pulled out of the same drawer, polished and used again. The record is the record. The facts are the facts. Obama used quiet, surgical humor in that Washington ballroom in 2011 and changed the temperature of the entire room. Kimmel used the exact same kind of humor in that Hollywood theater in 2024 and did the exact same thing. Trump sat in 2011 and could not move a single muscle. Trump sat in 2024 and could not stop typing for a single minute. 13 years, 2 stages, 2 very different men at the microphone, one single technique. And the same man in the audience discovering again, after more than a decade, that the one thing he cannot defeat, the one thing he cannot shout over, the one thing he cannot sue, the one thing he cannot pressure, the one thing he cannot silence, is another person who simply refuses to raise their voice. Some lessons in public life are taught once and quickly forgotten. They come, they go, they fade. And then sometimes, every so often, a lesson is taught twice. Taught in 2 completely different rooms by 2 completely different men, 13 years apart, to an American audience that is finally old enough, finally tired enough, finally awake enough to see the pattern for what it really is. This is one of those lessons, and it is one of the most important ones this country has been handed in a very long time, because it is a lesson about power. It is a lesson about noise. It is a lesson about the difference between the person who shouts the loudest and the person who hits the hardest. It is a lesson that the man who stays calm, the man who waits, the man who lets the silence do the work, often ends up owning the room he supposedly walked into as the underdog. And it is a lesson that keeps repeating itself in American life, again and again, across decades, on different stages, in different tones, waiting for us to finally understand what it is trying to tell us. If this story hits you the way it hit the people in that ballroom in 2011, and the way it hit the people in that theater in 2024, take 1 second right now and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell, because these stories are not slowing down. They are speeding up. Comedians are still stepping onto stages. Presidents are still watching from far away. The quiet war between noise and calm is still playing out every single night across American television. Drop a comment below and tell us which moment hit you harder. Obama in that ballroom, or Kimmel on that Oscar stage. Like the video, if it made you think differently about how power actually works, share it with the one person in your life who still remembers that the loudest voice in the room is almost never the strongest one. Because these stories are not just entertainment. They are the quiet shape of power, showing itself to anyone patient enough to actually watch.